welcome to Ready STEM Go, where we talk about some of the big STEM questions floating around with our QT researchers, students and alumni. My name's Nicola and I'm a final year Science and Communication student here at QUT. I've got the privilege of chatting to our experts and getting to guide you through a series of questions this series. We're here today in QUT's 5 Green Star building, P Block. QUT would like to acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the land on which QUT now stands. We pay respect to their customs, laws, elders and creation spirits, and recognise that these places have always been places of teaching, research and learning. With me today is Cael Gallagher, who is currently completing her PhD in Immersive Systems for Geology Education. Welcome, Cael.
Thank you.
So, Cael started her study journey over in the Netherlands, where she completed her Bachelor of Science before making the move to the Sunshine State, Queensland, and starting her Master of Philosophy in Human-Computer Interaction. But it's a fun fact that you actually didn't complete your Masters, as your thesis was able to be articulated into a PhD.
Yeah.
So today we'll be focusing on your research, learning how virtual reality can help us learn about environments that can't physically be reached, like Mars. And with so many exciting things to unpack, let's get into it. So Cael, I want to jump back to where your career journey started, where it all started for you and your background in human-computer interaction. So what is your interpretation of this field and what made you want to focus your Bachelor and Masters and eventual PhD studies?
Yeah, that's a big question. Essentially, a human-computer interaction, I kind of stumbled on it after trying to go through a software science degree.
Cool.
And I realized that not interfacing with people with the stuff that I'm making, I wanted to make stuff for people. And I realized that there was this whole degree entirely dedicated to that called human-computer interaction, where I could do a mixture of software science units and psychology units. So I guess that's the main reason why I chose it in the end.
And then what led you to kind of your most recent fascinating research area, where you're helping to develop VR solutions for geology research and education?
Yeah, that's also a bit of a crazy journey because initially I didn't even want to do a research degree. I kind of just wanted to cruise through another coursework degree because I didn't think that I would be cut out for research just yet because I didn't have a lot of experience with it. But anyway, I got in contact with people at QUT because it was COVID when I was looking for a PhD, and they responded back saying that there was an opportunity and I could start looking at some different, specifically related to serious games research. But yeah, then COVID hit and that kind of got postponed further and further until I got a message from my current supervisor saying that she had an ARC grant. And it was in the field of developing VR systems for planetary surface exploration, which to me sounded super badass.
Yeah.
And I thought the idea of creating virtual spaces where you could take people to places that they'd never been to, as you said, sounded like a very accessible way to communicate science to people and potentially develop educational tools. So I just jumped on it and said that I was on board. And the rest is history. I made it to Australia as soon as I could after that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's honestly a really exciting international career journey. So what places are people visiting through your VR experiences?
Oh, tons of places at this point. So we have a whole VR experience that's dedicated to going to Mars. And that's been really fun to make because we've been able to follow the journey of the recent rovers Perseverance and the UAV helicopter Ingenuity.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's people right here at QUT who are working with the rover and the helicopter and who have inside knowledge of how like the planning missions work. They work specifically with the Pixel instruments, which is infrared spectroscopy, which is basically just looking at the chemical composition of the rocks on Mars. And we're just creating a Mars environment for them to do their research there instead of in a boring lab, which, to be fair, scientists do tend to like, so I can't fault that too much. But we're also developing environments around the places that I've personally visited.
Yeah.
So we've made one related to South Australia. I went to Arkaroola with one of the classes here at QUT where they do a field mapping unit. It was really beautiful and I was inspired to ask our developers to make an environment that looks like it, and we have something similar to that. We've made an environment related to the Pilbara, which is also where I went last year. I went there with David Flannery, who works here at QUT. And I also went with...
He's a really cool guy.
He is very cool. Michael Tuitt, who works with JPL at NASA.
Yeah.
And we also were with Julian, who is here also at QUT developing software and sensors for drone technology. And another one of my studies relates to looking at modern geology environments.
Cool.
So by modern, I mean like currently active in creating rocks, essentially. So we have like a volcanic environment, we have a beach environment, and we have a mountainous environment. And each of them reflects different types of rock types. So you have metamorphic, igneous, and sedimentary. And all of those environments reflect how those rocks are currently being made, and we're trying to see if it helps with recall in novice students. So we're still developing more places on top of that as well and trying to make them more accurate, so using satellite data as well. So that's a very exciting part of the research that we're doing.
Yeah, no, that sounds like there's so many things happening on the QT, and then as well, what an amazing way that would be to learn about sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic.
Yes, you get to go there.
Be immersed in it. Yeah. So it must be really exciting to be at the forefront of tech innovation in geology research. So could you share some of the benefits to these tools?
Yeah, so we're still trying to figure out what the benefits are, because that's essentially what our research is all about. It's about exploring how we can design VR technologies for whatever purpose it is that we're looking at, whether it's research, scientific outreach, or educational purposes. And there's still a lot to figure out because it's not a standardized field at all. And we don't know what are the best controls, what are the best mechanical interactions for working with rocks, which is a very niche topic as well. So that's all part of our main research goals right now, but I can already start to see a lot of the benefits. And we've been really targeting 3D thinking skills specifically with my PhD specifically, because I do want to teach people how to understand geology better through VR. And already it's possible to see like geology is a very 3D topic. There's a lot of stuff that you have to think about in terms of how rocks behave across an environment because it's affected by topography or how things are cut. And you have to think about what's happening at depth in the earth as well. So all of those projection skills, you never actually really get to see it in person because it's on such a huge scale and it's massive depth. So unless you're taking a core or whatever it might be, then you're never gonna see it. So the idea is with VR is that we can try to bridge that gap and give students a way to see what it is to actually be right about a 3D projection skill, right? And one of the big things that we're seeing is some of the 3D visualization, data visualization methods that we have that are usually only ever seen in 2D format, but they are 3D, that we can put that into a VR and people understand it a lot better.
So I heard you're spending a lot of time in outback Australia.
Yes.
What's going on out there? What are some of your favorite places?
Essentially, I've been going out on different field trips with both the second year units, which are more just introductory to understanding geology, but also the third year field mapping units, which take the students to really remote parts of Australia. And I've been really lucky to get to go with them on 2 of those trips so far. So I went to Arkaroola in South Australia, and I think Arkaroola has to be my favorite, hands down. Also because it was my first field trip ever. It was the first time I even went camping, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. It's like 7 hours inland from Adelaide.
What a great first camping experience.
I know, and getting to be there with geologists who are super passionate about the rocks as well. It's incredible what kinds of stories you can learn about the rocks that I never would have noticed before. And we're looking at rocks that are representative of the first beaches to ever exist in the world, which is just incredible. And the wildlife is also wonderful. In Arkaroola, there's a special yellow-tailed wallaby that doesn't exist anywhere else in Australia. But Mount Isa was also super cool to get to go to, simply because there's folds everywhere, which is one of the main 3D deformation structures that I target in my VR sessions. And getting to see them in real life, in person, was super beneficial to me for my research, because it's hard to convey why sometimes learning about geology is so difficult, and having to immerse myself in that experience along with students and try to imagine how would I interpret this leads me to be able to answer that question when I'm designing instruction modules in VR too. So I loved Mount Isa just for that reason alone.
Yeah. And as someone that's experienced postgraduate studies at QUT, what challenges have you faced, and what's your top tip for someone on a similar journey?
For me, the best part about being in a postgraduate, and the most important thing, has been having a really good team around me at any given point. I really love my supervisor, Islan Turkay. She's brilliant, and my secondary supervisor, Christoph Schrank, he's also absolutely fantastic, and they keep me motivated throughout the whole thing. And the developers that I work with as well are also very motivating, and I don't know, just people who are excited about what we're doing. It's so important to have that be in your environment, and it's not easy to find. I think making sure that you mesh well with the people that you're going to work with for 3 to 4 years is important, if you can manage that.
An extended amount of time.
Yes.
And so you have a strong background in both kind of that cognitive science side and ICT with various programming skills. So what are some of those kind of soft skills and hard skills that someone would need to be successful in your field?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing is more related to soft skills, which is just adaptability and not being afraid of trying something that you've never done before. So being able to recognize that you don't have to be an expert in something to be able to look it up, especially now that we have such a huge database of information available on the internet. Just because somebody asks you to try something that you have never done before doesn't mean that you can't do it. So I think that would be my main suggestion for people coming into a similar field.
Yeah, awesome. Is there any kind of like hard skills, any like coding that's been particularly helpful for you?
Yeah, okay, for the coding, I think I had to go through Java and I had to do assembly code, and both of those are really challenging languages to work with. And while maybe having some of that background knowledge was useful, I think what really ended up helping me was a mixture of Python, because Python, in my opinion, is just a lot easier in terms of the syntax, and there's so many libraries available out there that you can do anything that you want with it. So it feels really powerful, and it's really motivating when you get to make stuff with Python, because you just see the thing that you wanted to create. But the same thing happens with Unity as well. So I work with Unity a lot because of VR. We're essentially just making games, but serious games, educational games. And that works with C#, but Unity itself is really seamless, and it's again very rewarding from that side of, if I type this little script and I plug it into the system, suddenly I have things that move. So I would recommend like that in terms of hard skills. Just make something that works at the end of the day, and Unity is a great place to start.
Awesome. No, that's really good to know. I might have a go when I get home.
Yeah, sure.
So I've heard that PhD studies can be pretty full on. What does a typical day look like for you?
A typical day is I try to have a calm morning to get myself ready for the day, take the ferry into university, and then the rest of the day is here. And that's been really great because, again, I have a nice environment with people that I'm enjoying to interact with. So I might stop by somebody's office to ask them a question about methodology, but I also have a nice desk where I can just sit and focus on my work. So it's like feeding off of the social aspect of being at university has been important for me. And I'll work from home maybe once a week, something like that, just to recharge a little bit and get some distance from always being in the same office, because I think it's important to change where you work. And then just anticipating waiting for the next field trip is the rest of the time. Yeah.
Because what is a typical what did those 2 field trips with the students look like? What was their day to day?
There are days, they're long days in the fields. No matter whether you're doing the second year field trips or the third year field trips, we're getting up at like 5 in the morning and heading out. And because of the tides recently, when we went to Eden in New South Wales, we had to spend the day up until I think like 11 and then come back out for the high tide and then go back to the field around 2, and we'd stay until 6 or 7 p.m. So really long days, though very relaxing because you're at the beach, which is great. And the same thing, I think in Arkaroola and in Mount Isa, we were going out around 7 every morning, and we were coming back around 4 or 5. So they can be quite calm days. You set your own pace. You're going to look at the rocks. You're going to try not to die of heat stroke and consume lots of water, eat lots of foods, take it like nap if you want, sit down for a bit. And then in between, just really focus on what it is that you're looking at. And I think trying to maintain focus is a really difficult part of being in the field because it's so beautiful. Yeah. And there's so many cool animals about. Like at Eden, we were watching dolphins half the time we were out there. Yeah.
And so we've kind of talked about you're kind of in the middle of your PhD at the moment, but what does your future look like? What's next on the cards for you in your career?
I think what I have next is very similar to what I'm already doing now. As I was saying before, the idea of the PhD is that it's quite limited in terms of how much you can actually do within that time frame. So I'm really hoping that there's an opportunity for a postdoc in the near future to continue this work at QUT and really develop something that can actually be handed off to the geologists here, but then also around the world, because why not?
Yeah, and could you share a moment from your journey at QUT that made you realise kind of how and what role human-computer interaction has in solving real-world issues?
I don't think it's been a single moment. I think over the entire course of my PhD, I've been getting more and more familiar with what it is to do geology and know what it's like to be a student trying to learn geology, and having to communicate that then back to my team who knows nothing about geology. Computer scientists through and through, my development team, and also my supervisor from human-computer interaction. Just seeing them beginning to understand concepts through my secondhand delivery of the knowledge from the geologists has been really rewarding. And while they do seem to enjoy my geology ramblings, I think when it actually comes down to brass tacks and we need to make something, it has to be concise to not confuse them on what the task actually is. And that can be more challenging at sometimes than others because structural geology is a very physics and mathematics based field, and that's what we're really targeting with the VR learning environments that we're developing. So we're really lucky to have a mathematics honors student working with us who's developing a lot of the more detailed visualization techniques, Mackenzie Muir, and she's been really fantastic to work with alongside the rest of the development team. But making sure that she's only being fed the mathematics level information and not the huge amount of attached geology context is a challenge, but something that I've been really enjoying being a part of.
Yeah. No, it's so important to know your audience and what they need to know to be able to learn their best.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been absolutely amazing. I've learned so much, and I know we'll definitely talk about rocks after this.
Oh, excellent.
But for those watching, stay tuned for the next Ready STEM Go episode. Thanks for being here.